Yes, welcome to the No State Project. Project Day back live. Let's see what we got here. Yes, welcome to the No State Project, where we are back live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. I know it's been a few weeks. Had a lot of tech issues the last few shows, so hopefully we seem to be going pretty good right now. So hopefully it continues that we don't have any more of those problems. So the past the co well, I want to thank Chris Rob in Seattle for his continued support of the show. I do appreciate it. The show was brought today by him and also friends Bill and Dan up in New Hampshire, Eyal in Israel. Nelson, I appreciate the support that everyone has for the big show. It is episode 75. It's August 15th, 2018. And if you want to join me on the big show, if you're being attacked by a bureaucrat or you just want to learn how to argue better, you want to sharpen your BS meter, then give us a call at 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. Passcode is 2020. And because of the way I've got things set up here today, you can also Skype me at Frank Rizzo 3, but instant message me first. Don't just call the broadcast. So let it be so that I bring you up. I do prefer if you call the caller line, though. It's easier if you do that. A lot of stuff to get to. I know some people asking me here. Well, the big thing here I want to discuss is, I'm glad that I have a lot of evidence on my website regarding tickets and whatnot have been tossed out. And it keeps coming up in the chat, and people are telling me that even though I highly recommend doing the role playing, I want to point out again that the motion to dismiss is a part of a total defense. This is not a matter of file the motion to dismiss and it gets tossed out. That's not the way it works. Yes, I have a 100% success rate over the years in Arizona regarding photo radar. But even in some of those, people had to show up. But the overwhelming majority of the photo radar in Arizona, which again, every single one has been tossed out, you still have to prep for court. And you may have to still go. It's not file the motion to dismiss and it all goes away. I wish it was like that, but it's not. And I'm not somebody who's ever mentioned file the motion to dismiss and it'll get tossed out. No, that's not how things are. That is totally conflicts with the evidence. That would not be honest of anyone to do. And that's why you hear that kind of crap from people who are dishonest. Some people who say, well, just stamp accepted for value, send it in, and the whole thing goes away. Who would have thought, eh? Hey. But it doesn't work that way. So you have to do the role playing. I recommend getting the script, doing the role playing. You have to know the basics here. You should not have to the script is there as a guide when you're in court, but it should not be what you should never. And I put this in the instructions. You should never go in with the intention of just reading the script. No, you have to understand the basics. They're not that difficult, but you do need to understand the basics here. This is called we're using the Socratic method. It's been around, since Greece. I don't remember 300 BC or BCE, however you want that described. And it's been around for that long because it's highly effective. Now, if someone is throwing you a line of crap, they're not going to like it. People who are dishonest don't like the Socratic method because it is a very effective way of being able to upend somebody's argument if they're claiming something is true. So you got to put some time in. You need to prep. This is court. You're talking about dealing with criminals. Just having the motion to dismiss and having a script. No, you need to do the work. Do your homework. Now, we've cleaned up the chat. Hopefully, we're not going to have any more bots and whatnot, and it's not going to be cluttered. When you are in the chat and the guys are going to do a role playing, you have to stick to the role playing. But we have to be professional with each other. Okay? I said on this show 1,000 times, never interrupt the judge, ever. It's just bad form. It's not going to help your defense one bit. And now they've got ammunition to use against you that you are argumentative and that you're interrupted, you're unprofessional. Don't do it. The same goes for when we're on the role playing, especially since in the role playing there's going to be more than 4 or 5 people. It's going to be a group of people that are participating in this, and I know a lot of them mute up, but still, you don't want to interrupt and dominate the conversation. It should be a professional, inviting atmosphere. Yes, you have to have tough questions, and you should definitely give people tough questions, but certainly don't beat people up at least the first time around, and at least be good natured about it. So I'm going to be doing what I can to moderate it better. We have other moderators, so hopefully it's not going to devolve into what it was before because we have a brand new chat. But the bottom line is you have to do the role playing. It's like you can't just talk about you can know what a major scale is in your head, but if you never pick up a guitar, you're never going to be a very good, you're not going to be effective. You're not going to be very good. So know and understand the basic principles. The burden of proof is on the prosecution, it's not on you. So don't get this. So if we know the burden of proof is on the prosecutor, right then and there, that tells us something about how our defense should go. We should not be filing affidavits except in extremely limited circumstances. Why? Because an affidavit, you take a burden. You have to prove it's actually true. 2, most of the people polling this crap where they're talking about this patriot garbage, there's this Freeman on the land crap. Most of the time, they're having you put in the affidavits, legal arguments which have no basis being in an affidavit unless you are quoting what someone said. So let's say a prosecutor said something or a police officer had said something, and you're going to be using that against them. Yeah, that belongs in an affidavit. If a police officer makes a claim of probable cause and it's completely off the wall and unsupported, and yeah, put that in the affidavit if you need to. But most of the stuff that we're dealing with, we don't need to do that, and so it's not necessary. That's why I cringe every time someone tells me about an affidavit. Well, if I put an affidavit in, and then they start telling me what they want to put in there. And, well, traveling is a matter of right. It's not an extraordinary, legal arguments have no business in an affidavit for the reasons I already gave. It's just for facts that you have within your personal knowledge, not legal conclusions, unless, of course, like I just said, it is you're quoting somebody. Other than that, yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. So again, please, people, if you're new to this, get the basic principles, listen to a few role-playing sessions, and when you know the principles and are comfortable, start participating in that, because it's going to help you tremendously. We hear so many times it's reported, I hear so many times it's reported to me that we're not actually doing the work. That somebody will say, well, they did one role-playing session. Well, you're gonna have to spend more time doing that. Unless you are so good at public speaking and you already know the basics really well, you know how to employ the Socratic method, and you know when to object, which is most of the time, then you should be able to do pretty good. Because if you understand the basics, you want to know you want to know what the claim is, and then you want to know what the basis of that is. Why do they believe that that's true? And have them explain how that works. That's it in a general sense. That's how you go about doing it. And if you do that, you shouldn't ever be at a loss for a good leading question to ask somebody when you're trying to get them to verify whether a claim is true or not. And the thing is, with police officers, it's generally pretty easy because they're not of a high intellect. In fact, they actually have rules for their hiring that they don't want people of a very high intellect, because their excuse is, well, if they're very high intellect, very high IQ, they tend to get bored very easy and they leave the job soon. So we're spending all this money to train them. And no, it's because people who have a very high IQ tend to do something that politicians and authoritarians don't like, and that is asking questions. Asking questions is is like a cardinal sin with these people. If you don't believe me, do it. Put it into practice. Start asking some leading questions to a prosecutor or any kind of bureaucrat regarding the moral ground of their job, and asking them to prove that their laws that they force on us actually apply to anybody. And if you want a really good example that I've done, just listen to the short interview I did with the police chief in Scottsdale. Oh, Yeah, he did not take too kindly to that because they don't like asking questions. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention, I'll get to calls in just a moment. So I do have to address this. So somebody is wanting me to talk about the claim that voting is a contract that forever makes you a ward of the state and they can do whatever they want you till you file some kind of notice canceling the voting. Uh, that has no merit at all because they treat residents exactly the same. Residents, so if someone, like, let's say you live and you're a citizen, let's say, just for sake of argument there, of Arizona, but you spend a lot of time in California. Look, I do this every other week. I'll be in California, in San Bernardino for the show this weekend, but we will be live. Once I cross that Colorado River, things change. In the politicians' minds, all that crap called law that applies to me in Arizona stops the moment I cross that Colorado River on I-10. But now all the crap in California is supposed to apply to me. I'm not a citizen. They still believe their laws apply. They still believe that they create obligations on me. Hell, they think that even if I receive money from somebody in California, whether I'm in Portugal, or I could be in Africa, never set foot in the United States. But if I have a California source of money, they believe that their laws apply to me in Africa. Wow. Now, I spent a lot of time on the phone with the Franchise Tax Board this week. There's no evidence to actually prove that, but that's what they believe. So whether you are considered a citizen and you vote makes absolutely no difference whatsoever to their assertion of jurisdiction. And the fact that is it's not a contract. Contracts involve a meeting of the minds and freely giving consent. Now, let's just say for sake of argument that this is true, that you're a ward of the state and they can do literally whatever they want to you until you cancel the citizenship. Did they disclose that to you? Did they say, when you sign this here agreement, we get to do whatever the F we want to do to you until you cancel this? Do you really think that they could have you contract to be a citizen and they'd give you an escape clause? Oh, that's right. It's that Freeman on the land thing. There always has to be an escape clause. Really? Yeah, say that to someone like Ed Kemper. Well, there has to be an escape clause. I have to give it, you know. Yeah, that's the way the mafia works too. They have to give you a way out. And I went through this with someone this week. Ask them why this is where the Socratic method comes in. So it doesn't matter if it's political or it's some Freeman on the land. Ask them why they think that's true. And someone actually said to me, well, I heard that. I'm like, well, yeah, you heard that, but is that a real credible source? Does that prove the proposition or prove the claim? No. So why would you want to use that as defense? So I think that is sufficient to show that it doesn't make you a ward of the state, because if it made you a ward of the state, you couldn't defend yourself in court. You'd have to have an attorney, and we know that's not how it works. So, well, for criminal, you can still waive it, but in criminal, they consider everybody legally incompetent to defend themselves in criminal proceedings. Yeah, I know there'll be that one or two lawyers out there that want to split a hair. Well, the Supreme Court in Gideon versus Wainwright, they weren't discussing all crimes, Mark, you jackass, just felonies. So you're legally, capable of defending yourself in a manner. Yeah, whatever. That's not what they said. Not that it matters. It's all opinions. And what do they say about opinions? Every a-hole, it's like an a-hole. So anyhow, I think that takes care of it. If there's any more questions on that, I'm happy to address that. But it's one of these nonsensical issues or claims that come out in just a few minutes of objective, analysis. It falls apart. It's no different than when they say to you, "Hey, the driver's license is evidence of jurisdiction." Really? Well, let's apply some logic to that. So if I did have a driver's license, You have no jurisdiction? It falls apart that simply. But you got to ask the questions. And you got to know that the burden of proof is on them. You have to assume that every damn thing coming out of their mouth is a lie. And it's our job to put them to task to either put up the proof and show the evidence proving that their claim is true, or to withdraw, like is what they should be doing if they were exercising any good faith whatsoever. But we know good faith and government, these are not two things that go together very well. It's very rare for you to see good faith with these here government types. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the phones. We've got Charles in New Jersey. You're back on the No State Project. What do you got for us today? Charles in New Jersey.
Sir, I've spoken with you before, but it's funny you mentioned how you can't defend yourself in criminal court, because actually I just went and talked to them. I wanted to represent myself, and they do that. Defender, right? I told them I wanted to be assistant of counsel, and they don't know it yet, but I'm going to challenge their jurisdiction when I go in, because it's criminal court, and they're just basically just making a bunch of claims, just moving along. They're trying to put me in jail, but
what are they charging you with?
I can't. I'm charged with intent to distribute of marijuana and possession of marijuana. So they're claiming that I had an intent to distribute, but they, like you said, where's the proof?
Well, I believe, according to these people in their heads, which, of course, lacks logic, common sense, good faith, if you have more than a certain amount.
Yes, sir.
And so are they saying that you had, well, what are they, are they saying that you had more than somebody would typically have for personal possession, so it must equal intent to distribute?
Yes, I believe that's what the actually said. New Jersey, it's 50 grams, which is honestly not a large amount in like legal states. You know that. That's still personal, considered personal use and all. But that amounts to, and also, I don't know, I just got a whole heap load of charges starting on them.
What else?
The prosecutor, UI.
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Yeah,
what?
That was my vehicle.
What's the other charge?
Well, other than the DUI.
Oh, you have a DUI? Oh, come on, a DUI? You guys are killing me with these.
Well, I guess, I don't know. They have no proof though.
Well,
but I guess they don't need proof, right?
But well, no, they don't. Well, the rules require them to have proof, but the judges don't hold them to that. Well, a DUI. Well, okay, just for informational purposes here, the intent to distribute and possession may be a crime, but the DUIs are, at least first time DUI, it's not a criminal offense anymore in New Jersey.
Yes. They were actually trying to send that back. I'm in Superior Court at the moment.
I wish we had a better connection here. This is not. You're going to have to repeat that. I know I heard Superior Court.
You can't hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
but
I said
you break up.
they're trying to send the DUI back to municipal court.
Oh, okay.
And they're giving me a plea deal. Let me just read this plea deal for you. They basically told me, you take this deal or you're fucked, sorry, excuse my language. They said I'm screwed if I don't take this deal. It's like probation, mental health evaluation at their discretion, pay thousands of dollars, license suspended, some crazy stuff. And
wow, this sounds like a pretty good deal for them.
Yeah, I would say. Wait. Yeah, well, of course it is, because they think I'm just gonna go with it and pay it, like everyone else does. because everyone always just takes the deal and pays them their money.
Well, sure, and they rack up another conviction.
Yeah.
So 95% or so. Look, it's 90% plus of all criminal complaints result in a plea deal. So
yes, sir.
But at this point,
fair.
Well, one, I would object to the DUI being, I would object to pretty much everything. But where are you? Have you been to an arraignment yet?
Yes.
How'd that go?
Well,
yeah, this call may not work out too well. We may need you to call back. He actually dropped off, so we'll see if we can get him back on the line. But if you want to join me, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. And yeah, well, it's at least, it gives me an opportunity to take those headphones off. Although these are one of the more comfortable ones that I've used. Something that keeps coming up, and I've brought this up on the show, and it's come up again this week. It's difficult enough challenging jurisdiction and challenging the prosecutor's burden. It's difficult enough under regular circumstances. I don't want look. Everybody needs to make up their mind how they want to defend themselves and what's going to be the most effective one. And I think that if you're going to defend yourself, which is great, look, you got to think out why you're doing what you're doing. It has to make logical sense, and you should have some kind of evidence, some proof that it has been effective. Now, that's not to slam the door on something that's unorthodox and doesn't, as long as it passes the logical test. If you can show the logic and then use it as part of your defense, not maybe the entire, but at least put it to the test. That's at least as long as it passes logical, a rigorous critical analysis. But to take things like accepted for value, to try to bring the name game in and say, with no evidence whatsoever, and this is what I do with everyone that brings this stuff up. I always ask, and look, I'll use the Socratic method, whether I'm talking on a consult with somebody or I'm with somebody with a tax agent. Somebody's making a claim. Let's see if it holds any weight whatsoever. So find out exactly what the claim is. So here the claim would be they're charging you, and then I'll ask, so you're telling me that they are actually charging you as a corporation because your name is in all caps. Why do you think that that's true? Why do you think it being in all caps means you're a corporation? And the best that people could do, well, there's a definition in Black's Law Dictionary, which doesn't, I don't think the definition in Black's Law Dictionary says that if the name in all caps is a corporation. And plus, if it's a corporation, look, when governments incorporate, when you have a municipal corporation, there's always a paper trail. Where is the paper trail to prove that putting your name in all caps is a corporation? And then you ask some leading questions. Well, do they use the name in all caps every time they use your name? Let's say, like, if there's an order from a court, other than the caption in the actual order itself, in the body of the order, or let's say you have a decision, let's say it's an appellate decision, for example, do they put your name in all caps into the order? Is it in the decision? Well, no. So they're charging you as a corporation. They're charging the corporation, but then they use all proper English in the order. Does that make any sense? I mean, this stuff is so, what I'm getting at is investigate when somebody says, oh, this is great. Oh, there's a treasury. There's a multi-million-dollar, treasury account. Really? And where is the evidence of that? It's got to pass logical analysis. You've got to look at it critically and not just accept that because someone said it's true, it is true. And that goes for my work too. That's why, dissent is welcome on the show. And I'm able to back up and show the evidence and the logic that forms, the basis of what we do here. Well, why are you asking questions? Because the prosecution made certain claims and the burden of proof is on them. Well, where is your proof of that? Why do you believe that the burden of proof is on them? Well, because we have almost a 25-year 100-year history of logic that shows if you make a claim, you bear the burden of proof. It's not up to other people to disprove you. We also have right in the legal code itself that the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal prosecution. So, I can back that up. What about the claim that, well, they're saying, Mark, you're saying that jurisdiction requires evidence. They're saying it doesn't. Why do you say it requires evidence? Well, okay. Well, Rule 3.1 of the ethical rules, lawyers are not permitted to argue without fact and law. So if they're making a claim, they have to have evidence to support that. Due process does require that it's not arbitrary and that it's not speculation. That it has to be evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. So there's some basis to that. And we've had judges point blank stating that jurisdiction is a trial issue for years. We have the New Hampshire judge with Derek J. Burke, jurisdiction's a trial issue. And we also have Desjardins stating that jurisdiction's a trial issue. Or jurisdiction's a pure issue of law, requires no evidence to prove it beyond proving that you were physically in New Hampshire. And plus, it's in the name, territorial jurisdiction. We also know that we are not permitted to argue without evidence against the prosecution because we will go to jail. So there should be a firm logical basis for the claim. If someone's going to say that, hey, all you got to do is say that you are the administrator for the trust and it goes away, show one time that has one success with that. You can't do that, So don't mix the stuff. So if you have a ticket, you're fighting one of these things, and you've gotten a motion to dismiss from me, please stick to just factual issues, stick with just the program, and don't throw this Freeman on land crap in there. Where take is the motion to dismiss is based on a lack of evidence proving jurisdiction. It's not based on interpretation. It's not based on what the laws say and that the prosecutor is charging me as a person and I'm not a person within meaning of statute. No. What we're doing is we're saying that the prosecution's claim is not supported by proof. Vastly different than saying, well, I'm not a taxpayer within meaning of statute. Now you're arguing definitions, and even if you're right, to get it overturned, it is a vastly higher burden of proof than a factual issue where you just have to show where the judge got their facts wrong. So please don't mix the two. Don't do it. That's why it's easier to put the judge on the spot if they just blanket deny the motion to dismiss. Because it's based on a lack of evidence, we can object and ask them, so you're satisfied that the prosecution has provided sufficient facts, sufficient evidence to prove jurisdiction, for example, if personam jurisdiction and subject matter jurisdiction. So now if the judge is professional enough to answer the question, then you can follow up and ask for what that what that alleged evidence is, because it's not evident. It's not evident. So don't mix it. I can't tell you how many times people have complained that the judge is railroading them because he's not accepting their definitions. Because the judge doesn't have to. The judge can look at their own cases, they can look at their own laws and disagree with your interpretation. It's completely different than when you're in a situation where you're saying the prosecution doesn't have evidence. Because now you start getting all the stupid responses. Well, the ticket's the evidence. Or we don't need evidence. That is something that at least you can use against them. Whereas if the judge disagrees with your interpretation of the statute, you're going to lose. Even if you're right, you're going to lose. Because because it's an abuse of discretion, and you and I don't get the opportunity. We are not the privileged few that get to win on appeal for an abuse of discretion. No. The only time something like that is in our favor is if the judge doesn't allow cross-examination. We're able to show 100% of the time that the question was relevant and he abused his discretion by not allowing the question. But other than that, abuse of discretion, you are not going to win. That is just not in the cards for us. Okay, somebody's asking me, please clarify that 3.1 rule for future reference. 3.1 is the general rule. So if you look at the American Bar Association and you look at a lot of places like Arizona, 3.1 is the number of the code in the attorney's judicial conduct and ethical rules. And it states that lawyers may not make an argument that is not based on law and fact, or fact and law. And what the prosecution does is make claims that are not based on fact and law. Now, this is different than saying they can make a pure issue of law. Sure, and I'll cover that. A pure issue of law doesn't require evidence. It's just a matter of what the law says. So, so the example that I like to use is that prosecutorial misconduct. One example of prosecutorial misconduct is to withhold exculpatory evidence. That is a pure issue of law. I don't have to look at any evidence other than what the law says to actually prove that it's true. Prosecutorial misconduct, part of it is arguing without evidence. Another way they can argue that they can commit prosecutorial misconduct is to withhold exculpatory evidence. So if they have evidence showing that you're innocent, if they have evidence showing that their witness is not qualified, and they don't give that to you, that is prosecutorial misconduct. But the moment we say that Judge Burke is guilty of misconduct, we have to have evidence. That's not a pure issue of law. When you actually apply the law and say that someone violated it, or saying that the law applies to somebody, now you're out of the realm of the theoretical, or here you're not talking about pure issue of law. This is why these lawyers have to lie and contradict themselves. So I'll say it again. It always bears repeating because it goes right to the heart of how dishonest these people are. Jurisdiction is a pure issue of law requiring no evidence. All they have to do is show that you're physically in Arizona. That is a contradiction. And for some reason known only to them, because I can speculate they're just being dishonest and contradicting themselves, they just cannot, some of these people, admit that jurisdiction is not a pure issue of law requiring no evidence. It does require evidence. And to think that, because you have to look at that there's personal jurisdiction and that there's also subject matter jurisdiction. And the idea that they can satisfy subject matter jurisdiction and not have a shred of evidence to prove that is beyond the pale. That you don't have to have any evidence to support your claim. You just have to say it. Now, I know that that's true in a practical sense for prosecutors. But if anyone doubts that that is not permitted by their own rules, you file against them. File against them and and you can actually quote the prosecutor and the judge that has said those things to you. They won't give a damn. Because you have to have proof. That's why with a motion to dismiss, it admits all well-pleaded facts. All well-pleaded facts must be taken as true for the purpose of the motion in favor of the plaintiff. But what if there's no facts? What if there's just legal opinions given with nothing behind it? You are not permitted under the rules to argue subject matter jurisdiction doesn't require evidence, period. That is insane. Yes, prosecutors do it every single day and get away with it. Why? Because it's like Judge Kaczynski said. Prosecutorial misconduct is at epidemic levels and is only continuing because judges will not stop it. And that's the way, and we most of us have seen that. We've seen that play out. Even when someone like Stephen Meyrie is nailed to the wall publicly in court for just brazen and unconscionable prosecutorial misconduct, not even his first time, nothing is done to him. And I'll say, prosecutorial misconduct, at least in most cases, amounts to a felony, obstruction of justice, and false imprisonment, because you're actively working to put someone in jail, into prison. Joe Arpaio would put your butt in Tent City for months over the allegation of that. But judges can actually call prosecutors out on it. It's obvious to everybody. It's beyond any reasonable doubt that they're guilty of misconduct and committing felonies. Nothing is done, because lawyers are for lawyers. They're for really two things. They're for lawyers, and they're for lawyers making money. And if anything gets in the way of that, it's not going to happen. Then nothing's going to get done. It's so, to get back, yeah, Rule 3.1, really important. But you also have the Shaw case, which I've quoted many times. Maybe I should have to put it in the show notes here. That's just one case saying that, in a general sense, prosecutorial misconduct is arguing without evidence, and always object. And I would always, and this goes back to the paperwork, if the prosecution will not admit and say whether the witness has personal knowledge of that, if they will not disclose the evidence being used, if any, to prove each element of the crime, then that is, and they want to continue going, that is prosecutorial misconduct. And I would file a motion to dismiss prosecutorial misconduct, and I have a template for that. And it doesn't help the prosecution and the cop any to say things that the police officer is not making legal determinations. They're not making legal claims. That is a lie. And I've covered that here on the show, and I'm going to keep doing that because we always have new people listening to the broadcast. So I apologize if this is a little repetitive for some longtime listeners, but for the new people, anyone tells you that the police officer is not or a tax agent is not making legal claims against you or legal determinations, they are lying to you. Who are you going to believe? You're going to believe the actual evidence that you can investigate, and you can see with your own eyes. You can see the ticket with the police officer, and in generally what those tickets will say, I hereby swear that the person named above committed the named act, and that act is a violation of the law. So what they're saying is the laws apply, and Mark violated them. And that I had probable cause to arrest him. Those are legal claims. They're not statements of fact. I don't give a damn who argues with you or who tries to tell you different. They are lying to you. Employ the Socratic method again, with them to bring out that it actually is. Ask them, do you really think that a determination of probable cause is a statement of fact? You don't think that that's a legal claim? It's mind-boggling to me that people could be so dishonest, and the average person just they just drink it up. The amount of complacency and how people just accept what they think is an expert says. Well, they went to law school. They must know. Yeah. They must know. No, they don't. And if they do know that there's no evidence to support these laws, just like we had the law professor up in Canada admit it's not based on evidence and argument. It's not based on anything other than a blunt assertion of power. If they know that, they're not going to do anything. And certainly not going to be like Robert Diab, and they're not going to broadcast it to the world. Oh, by the way, there's no evidence these laws apply. It all comes down to force. We have no legitimacy at all. It all comes down to force. Jurisdiction is force. Got nothing to do with the Constitution. Yeah, I know. That's why... well, look, I'm going to have to put the headset back on because we do have a new caller, which is great. So we've got, looks like Los Angeles. We've got area code 310. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Anthony.
Anthony, what part of California are you calling from?
Actually, right here in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, that's what I thought.
East Los Angeles.
Oh,
Over
East
by
LA.
Monterey Park.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
what can I do for you today?
Okay, actually, I contacted you on, hey, babe, you grab those papers? I contacted you through email because I want to do a Skype thing, but I want to make sure my Skype is up and running. Anyways, so if I can't see you on my feed right now, I don't know why. You're the only thing that I can't see. But what I wanted to talk to you about is if you look up anything on Invitation Homes,
Say that again.
Type it in YouTube. Invitation Homes.
Invitation Homes?
Yeah, I'll explain it. It all correlates with the franchise tax board. So I lived at Invitation Homes, and they're a bunch of scammers basically. And we had they hadn't given any heat or made any repairs for 2 years. So we went to court, and we set up a situation where we would pay a little extra rent because we were not paying it for a couple months, and they would do the repairs. Well, they never did the repairs, but we still continued to pay it. And then we sent the check, and they said they lost the check, and they wanted me to reissue another check. Then the next month, we sent them a check, $4,000, and they returned it to us. So on the third time, we didn't. It's a little complicated. This is why I'm going to have to talk to you on Skype. So then they did they wanted to evict us.
Okay.
What do you get that notice? I'm sorry, I'm kind of scrambled here. I'm trying to be clear. A notice to be out in 3 days. And so I filed a motion to quash. But when I brought it in there, I didn't realize you had a list of reasons why you're filing a motion to quash. And so they just made a judgment on me. And basically, we moved. I had to make a change of address. That takes 10 days. And we had to live in a hotel, put my dogs into a kennel. And then we had to make a change of address again. That takes another 10 days. In the meantime, they filed and said that we didn't collect our deposit and then charged us $8,000 for the repairs they were supposed to do while we were living there. And that's it. And they put a lien on the car. Now that gets into the franchise tax board, they sent us something that says we owe $8,514. And the same thing happened with the date. They sent it on the 6th. Because we moved, it took 10 days. It takes 10 days for the mail to be forwarded. And then we moved again. I mean, we had to change the address because we finally found another apartment. So that takes another 10 days. So by the time we got the notice, it was past due on 6/23. So we did contact them. And I have a recording of it. And basically what I'm trying to say is I've been trying to get a hold of you. I need to get you on Skype. I'll pay you the money and kind of go over some of this stuff with me because they took the franchise tax board went right into my joint account and with my girlfriend and just cleaned it out.
Well, okay. Well, let's try to make some sense of this, Anthony. They filed to evict you, and you filed a motion to quash, but you didn't put any grounds to support your motion to quash?
I didn't know how to do. Okay, they did it on a Friday. They said you have 3 days for the sheriff's coming, right? Now look, we've made all the attempts to pay this. We paid them. They said they lost one check. I gave them another check for $4,000 the following month. They sent it back, and then the following month they wanted me to send another check, but they were just going to send it back, and then or I don't know what they were doing. That's why I said if you look it up, you can see all the complaints and what this company does. So they filed on a Friday that we had 3 days to move. So obviously on Sunday, and they count, Invitation Homes counts on Sunday.
Well, but if they're filing in court, that doesn't count. I mean, only court days are going to count. And so you filed a motion to quash. You didn't have any grounds. So did they have any kind of hearing, or did they just grant the eviction notice or the petition?
Well, yeah. Well, so they said you have to give Invitation Homes 24 hours, which we could not contact them whatsoever. They don't pick up the phone. There's no portal. They don't return any emails. You'll see if you look this up. That's why I'm willing to pay you to do a little research on this. They screwed everybody, and they're trying to screw us out of $8,000. And we had all this stuff to move and all the money that we incurred. So my point. So then we get.
Wait! I'm running out of time here. So let me ask you this. Because that's pretty bad to not have a hearing on that, and because you could do a motion to quash, but they should still have allowed you to answer the complaint.
Okay, so she did those. So we went in, and some lawyer showed up. I don't know how, and we tried to talk to the judge, and the judge says, "Well, I have your answer right here on a piece of paper." I says, "Well, what are you looking at?" You know, we had all the documents. Everything that the plumbing was screwed up, and the heater was open when the heater would go on, all the stuff. And she just kept saying, "I have your answer right here." And I'm like, "Well, what are you looking at?" And she says, "I can't give you any illegal advice, and I can't help you."
What?
And she wouldn't tell me what she was looking at.
Good Lord. This came up on the show before, where people want to equivocate until words have no damn meaning anymore. The word advice is synonymous with suggestion. This is for everyone else listening. This is a douchebag move that lawyers use to avoid answering a question. Okay. Look, you mentioned franchise tax board. I had someone from the franchise tax board. It sounded like they were going to have a stroke on the phone because I asked them for a mailing address, and they were screaming at me. And so moments later, they can't give legal advice. Asking the judge what evidence what he's looking at is not asking for advice, because advice is a suggestion on how you should proceed and what the consequences of that would be. That's what legal advice is. Now, just let me rant here for a second. Could you actually imagine for a second, Anthony, imagine for a second that advice really did mean asking for information? They would be going after people. Everybody would be involved in the illegal practice, the unauthorized practice of law, because just giving someone a mailing address, just telling somebody what is on a piece of paper would be considered the practice of law, because you're giving legal advice. Legal advice is not. Again, know that you're dealing with somebody who's less than honest, because advice is not synonymous with every damn thing that you ask a lawyer, for heaven's sakes. And I actually had someone on the show try to equivocate and tell me that advice in a legal sense was not restricted to just a suggestion on how to act. Abba fongul to that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Again, they want to equivocate to a point that the words don't mean anything. All it is a scumbag move to not answer a simple question. They should have just told you what the hell they were looking at, because you could have said, "Objection, sir, I don't know what you're looking at. I didn't file anything other than a motion to quash, which has already been denied because I didn't have proper grounds there." So you could. Did they give you an opportunity to question any of their witnesses, or to question any of the evidence that was being used against you?
No, it was like a kangaroo court lady who they had come in. I said, "This woman doesn't even know. She just showed up. She doesn't know the backing of the case." And it says she doesn't have to know. "I have your answer right here that you're going to leave." And I argued with her for 20 minutes. So Jumping back to the franchise tax board, these taxes are under my girlfriend, okay? But I have a joint account with her at Wells Fargo.
Doesn't matter.
But they went in, and they just cleared it out. And so we called them, and I recorded it, and I just don't know. Okay, so here's the thing. The woman at the franchise tax board says, "Well, we're just estimating. I'm like, well, where are you estimating this from? Now I'm doing the talking. I'm not having my girlfriend do the talking just because I'm a little bit better talking with people. I mean, not maybe with you right now, but
yeah, I was going to make a joke about that, but
yeah,
like, man, this guy's girlfriend must be a terrible speaker.
I'm trying not to waste your time.
Well, let me get to this, because I think this is important, and we can always continue this, off air. We could do a consult, and we could do, the show next week where we have a lot more time. Did the Franchise Tax Board send any documentation about a notice proposed assessment, and did they give you anything prior to just taking the bank account?
Okay, well, that's the 10 days. Okay, so when we got kicked out of the apartment, right, which we had the money to pay.
Nice.
We had all of it. Okay,
so you're doing a lot better than me. So somebody asked me for $8,500. I could just, that's all I can do. Oh, $8,500? How about phone call? That's what I got for you. Right here. That's the best I can do for you today. Okay, so.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. So when we left, we had to find an apartment down here. I mean, a hotel. They don't take forwarding addresses at this motel. We just had to get our stuff, put it in storage, move to a motel, take the dogs to the kennel, and then start looking for a house. So we forwarded it to where I work.
Oh, so I'm understanding.
It takes 10 days to go there.
Gotcha.
This is sent out. The Franchise Tax Board situation was sent out the exact same day this Invitation Homes was sent out that says we owe them $8,000 in damages. Okay, so we didn't get the Franchise Tax Board, and we didn't get the stuff from Invitation Homes until we finally moved into this place we're living now, and it came a week later, which was a week late, in order for me to respond to any of the charges or the things that they were saying.
Yep, California's on fire, but they're still stealing money from people, from the little people.
It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable.
Well,
so, I don't know.
I've spoken to the Franchise Tax Board more than any other agency this week, and they have been pretty. You still have to call them to say, look, I did not have advance notice of this. This needs to be reversed now, and maybe get the legal department involved, because they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you to go to legal anyway. None of the departments in the Franchise Tax Board, none of them can do anything other than take money. They'll always put it off onto some other agents, some other department. So that's what I would do for that. But we just had something where when you do a protest, it automatically stays the process. They won't do that in this case that I'm working with out in Southern California. So we have to go to the Board of Equalization to have them stop these animals. So. That's because I'm pretty much out of time. I understand. Wow, that is a mess.
Can I set something up with you when we can talk?
Yeah, you can.
I'll pay you.
Yeah, you can contact me off air, and we can do that. But I wanted to get back before I let you go, because I'm looking at this. Did you appeal the eviction order from the lower court?
No, because it was just time to leave. These people were bleeding us, man, bleeding us dry. Everything if they could. That's part of the reason I'm going to pay you. Just go to YouTube and look. Waypoint Homes, Colony American Homes, Invitation Homes. It's all the same thing. They're the same company. They screw a bunch of people, then they pick up and they change their name.
So you're trying to tell me that people that act as landlords are being unethical and immoral? I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I can't believe that a landlord is not one of the warmest, most honest person in the world. A landlord? Really? Really?
It's not a landlord. That's what I'm telling you. The lease was 36 pages long. It's a massive company.
I was just trying to be funny.
Yeah, I know. You're trying to make me laugh.
38-page lease. Is that what you said?
What's that?
Did you say the lease was 38 pages?
Yeah.
Holy crap. Yeah, some lawyer made a lot of money writing that.
Oh man, it's a billionaire-backed company. They own like houses across the country.
Sure. Yeah, I know how they go. These kind of companies, like any landlord, is look, landlords tend to be pricks. They're the type of people who are completely superficial. All they're interested in is in money. Landlords do. A lot of landlords, they never realize that. Yes, it's an investment property, but you have to maintain it. It's not like gold that you just throw away and it doesn't corrode. Okay, a house, or like any other, like a car or something, if it's being used, even if it's not, you could just have a house here in Arizona and you're still going to have to replace the if you have one of these tile roofs, you still have to replace it every 20 years or so. But most landlords, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, that I've read about, are scumbags. They don't want to do a damn thing to keep up the property, and then they pull this crap when you finally have to leave, whether you are forced out or you get out on your own. They hit you with a bill for all the repairs that they were supposed to do.
Exactly. It's exactly what you fucking did.
Yeah, I don't know who I have more disdain for: the people like Bain Capital and landlord types, or lawyers, and or government types. But they're cut of the same cloth.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, they're cut of the same. Okay, well, you can get me at markstevens.net, and we'll schedule something and see what I can do to help.
Okay, so I did receive your email. I'll let you go. I know you got to go, and I appreciate it. And next time I talk, I'll be more calm and have my facts down. I just know that you're live on the air, so I'll just do that link, and then make sure my Skype is up and it's okay. Do the PayPal.
You can do PayPal. You can use Cells. Either one.
PayPal or what?
Cells.
Oh, Cells. Oh, I'll do the Cells. Okay.
All right. Sounds cool.
All right. And look forward to talking to you. We'll talk about guitars.
Hey, sounds good. Always up for that. Appreciate the call. Anthony in Los Angeles. Yeah, I'm sorry. We are totally out of time. But just to wrap up, it's great to finally be back live and do the show. I'm hoping that we're not going to have these legal... we're going to have these tech issues. Keep having tech issues here on the big show. But I will be in San Bernardino for the weekend. But the show will be broadcast live, of course, from 1 to 4 Pacific time, 4 to 7 Eastern Standard Time. We lead into, of course, Free Talk Live on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM. I've had my own experience with landlords. We had one that would not repair anything. And I didn't have $4,000 or $5,000 to fix the AC. So I had to wind up getting some cheap window units because the landlord, I have yet to meet a landlord that actually gave a damn about look, we're human resources. People, and look, I hope I'm not offending people, but if the shoe fits, then, but I'm not saying this is all of them, but some of the most materialistic, vain, just shallow people that I've met in my life have been in real estate. Everyone is a stepping stone to them. Every house, it's just an opportunity for them to make more money. I even heard on the radio, they were doing a study, a series of shows regarding the housing crisis. And they were asking these people who made a fortune off of everyone's misery. And, because they had all the money that they could pay cash for foreclosed houses. And they were asked, look, does it bother you at all that you made a tremendous amount of money and you profited so much off of the absolute misery and destruction of the economy? And these guys were like, if it wasn't us, somebody else would do it. Not a care in the world that people's lives were upended and destroyed by what these bankers and real estate people did. Not a care. As long as they are making a profit, they don't give a damn. That's not all of them, no. But I haven't met too many people like that. It's just the way it is. People in real estate don't help you unless you put cash on the table, even if you're friends. So it's like lawyers. Every single thing is about money. Everything is about money. How can they get more money? Gosh, sickening. That's why I would recommend, if you haven't ever listened to Pink Floyd's Animals, do yourself a favor. Go to YouTube and listen to that. Get one of the videos that plays the lyrics, because the lyrics are as the lyrics are almost as devastating as David Gilmour's guitar playing, because it's all laid out there. The line that Roger Waters wrote, "Way down by the stone." Holy crap, does that? Yeah. Animals by Pink Floyd, one of the best albums ever produced, and it never gets old. Again, the lyrics are fantastic. You'll certainly learn. And nothing's changed since that album came out in 1977. I mean, everything's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And there are different ways to look at it, but the pigs usually mean the same thing. The pigs are like Lloyd Blankfein, who could sit back and, after watching the world economy burn as he was personally profiting from it, to actually get up there and say he's doing God's work. Well, I guess that depends on what he means by God. His massive ego, his need to, profit off of disaster and destruction. Yeah, he is doing God's work. All right, we are out of time, unfortunately, but I will be live on Saturday's broadcast, and this has been episode 75 of the No State Project Live, commercial free, and hopefully we will have smooth sailing the rest of the year and won't have any more tech issues. But I'm glad to be here. If you disagree with something I put out on the show, hey, dissent is always welcome. Just give us a call during a live broadcast. I'd love to hear it. Again, my name is Mark Stevens. The website is markstevens.net. And till next time.